Week 3 of the UFL is officially in the books now that we've got the official TV ratings and attendance for week 3. And let me tell you, right off the bat, I believe that these numbers are very, very good. Considering what we saw in week 1 and week 2, we are on that uptrend of what we are seeing between ratings and attendance. Now, of course, there is one exception to this, and it is the Saturday game with ratings, but we'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it. You pull that up here on the screen, and we start off with, of course, with the the attendance numbers for week 3. Now, of course, on the left side of this chart are the numbers from 2024. As you can see, the numbers for this week have jumped up in comparison, but it is because of the Battlehawks in this situation. So again, those numbers are there for comparison if you want to look at them. I am just going to focus going forward on the current attendance numbers. Except we'll talk about the Panthers situation because I think that's something very great to look at. So Friday, April 11th, we had the Renegades and Stallions on Friday night at Protective Stadium, and the attendance was 10,126. Now, of course, with this number, I have said it in the past, and I think a lot of other people have said it in the past. It is hard, in my opinion, for it's great for TV. Let me get that straight. The TV perspective, it's great for Fox to have that slot open up on Friday night now that they don't have SmackDown and they can showcase the UFL. Now, of course, when it comes to essentially getting people to these games, I think it is very hard, and we've seen this in the XFL in 2023, when you're expecting people to go to a game right after work, and things like that. It's a challenge, especially some people that may not get off until right prior to kickoff to go home, get family, go out to the games. It's just something that most people probably choose not to do. Now, of course, with this, I do expect this number to potentially go up as time goes on for the Stallions. But for this game, they got 10,126. Not bad, but again, we'll just put that in comparison there. So Saturday, April 12th, the Roughnecks and Showboats. Now, of course, this number is low, 4,753. But to that point, it is an increase from the last Memphis Showboats home game, which to me is a plus. Now, of course, it's not anything that a lot of people are looking for. And quite frankly, I think from week 1, everybody and their brother have thrown away the Showboats and want them to relocate the team or get them out of Memphis and just rebrand the team. I think that is a bad idea. And I've talked about that almost mind-numbing on this channel in the past, about how moving organizations or franchises or whatever you want to call them doesn't help with the trust of the fans. And if you sour the Memphis area, yeah, there's 4,753 of them, you could go into an unknown territory that gets worse attendance or has no fans because of the fact that they see in the league that they can't be trusted. Now, of course, with the XFL in 2020 to 2023, the USFL, things like that. Now, granted, the USFL is a little bit of an exception because none of the teams in year 1 played in their home. But when they put teams on pause and things like that, it just doesn't feel good for a fan. You spend a lot of money on travel, merchandise, games, food, all this type of stuff, just for the league to move them out after a year, 2 years, whatever the case may be. Now, of course, this is the third consecutive year of Showboats football in Memphis. We don't have any numbers from the USFL in 2023, but in comparison, I still say that this is a market they need to continue building on. I think it's a great area that they have the opportunity for someone to buy this team. The FedEx owner, who has expressed massive interest in potentially owning this franchise one day, I think this is where they start that. If you get a private owner in there, they can then, one, depending if like a CBA agreement is reached that owners can pay the players what they want, You have the ability to more market this team and things like that. I think this is a great location to do that. It's not in an NFL city. Of course, Nashville is not too far away from Memphis, but this is the point here is factor that this is a location. The stadium is really good. It's currently in renovation and will be finished next year. I think this is a great point for the UFL to continue, stay put, and just let this grow out. I think after a cut, maybe like 4 or 5 years, if you're still seeing something, maybe at that point it's time to kind of step back and look at it. But with, again, you can't consider the USFL technically year one of this. I think last year was even kind of iffy. But again, the league has not spent that much money on marketing. They've done a poor job on that, which we've talked about. But I think in this sense, I stay put in Memphis. I have hopes for this. But again, the number went up, and I'm impressed with it. Speaking of, though, numbers that have gone up. Sunday, April 13th, the Brahmas and Panthers at Ford Field, 11,103. This number has continued to grow each home game for the Panthers. And this is where I go to that 2024 season 1 number. Just a year ago, on the same date, 6,952 attended the game at Ford Field. We have almost double that this year. And from what I'm hearing, as time goes on, we continue to hear that ticket sales are going up in Detroit for the Michigan Panthers. This is great news. I like this number, and I hope to see it continue to grow because I think this is a great market for the UFL in general. But moving on to St. Louis, and of course, the Defenders and Battlehawks, 30,014. Now, of course, this number is a drop from the previous home game of the Battlehawks. But again, we're still in consideration of the Cardinals and their MLS team who were playing at the same time. I think MLS may have a little bit of a difference in time, but that still is considering the factor of those. 30,014, which is absolutely amazing numbers. And hopefully, again, we continue to see this number grow now that the championship game has been announced for St. Louis. Hopefully, that is another incentive for the Battlehawks to keep winning and to get to a championship game in St. Louis. That's what we're seeing here. I'm hoping that's the case because that would be great for the league. But again, there's a lot riding there with the DC Defenders and potentially the Arlington Renegades. So anyways, week 2 totals, 55,996, averaging 13,999. UFL 2025 total attendance through, and this should say 3 weeks, through 3 weeks is 154,749 and an average of 12,896. Again, the average numbers just slightly different than last year. It's not much of a difference. In the overall total, roughly about 2,200 some odd numbers, where the average is roughly about 100 and maybe 90 people. So that's actually not that bad. We'll continue to see potentially a rise in attendance or whatever happens as we continue with the season. Attendance numbers are credited to Mike Mitchell, the GOAT himself. Now, of course, with this, they all come from the league directly, sources from the league that Mike Mitchell gets them from. So we do truly appreciate that. But let's move on to the next portion here. And that, of course, is week 3's viewership. Because in my opinion, this is where I think we're right back on track. Now, of course, I told you there was an outliner here, and it was the Roughnecks and Showboats game. So, of course, at the top of this chart, numbers from last year compared to numbers this year. This is where total viewership is completely down in the UFL, and we can see that clearly here. But when we look at the Friday night game, those numbers did go up from the previous week 2. So the Renegade Stallions at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox did 680,000 viewers. Not bad at all. Saturday, April 5th, 2025, the Roughnecks and Showboats at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN only drew 295,000. I am not surprised by this. One, I believe the Masters were going on, the semi part of the finals of the Masters, because the actual Masters are on Sunday, and that's a key point to keep in mind here. So there's a little bit of lower viewership there. The game was an 0-2 team versus an 0-2 team. I thought it was a decent game overall, but viewership just didn't show that. And that's okay. These numbers kind of remind me more of like an FS1 game or an FX game back in the XFL in 2023. But we'll continue to keep an eye on that time slot, because there are other games coming up with that time slot on ESPN. So I'm curious to see where that could change as less and less other sports are on during that time. Then we move on to Sunday, April 6, 2025, the Brahmas and Panthers at 12 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. 719,000 viewers, which is absolutely amazing, because in comparison to, let me pull it up here, in comparison to last week, during this almost same time slot, we were seeing 613,000 on ESPN. So with being on ABC, in that same time slot, you got 719,000. Very good. Numbers went up there. Then the biggest of them all, the game we all anticipated would potentially get really good numbers at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC, the DC Defenders and the St. Louis Battlehawks, 967,000 viewers. To me, this is exciting. The game peaked, I believe, at 1.3 or 1.5 at some points during it, ESPN reported, which is absolutely amazing. This was all going on while the Masters were on ESPN and streaming on ESPN Plus. So this is absolutely amazing numbers for the league in that time slot, and I'm very happy to see that. Hopefully, we keep seeing these normal numbers that we've seen in the past, like looking at last year's Battlehawks Brahmas game at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Got 1.02 million viewers compared to 967. So again, we're seeing a comparison in those time slots, very comparable. Then we look at the total viewership of this week, 2,661,000 viewers for a total that is almost a million drop from last year. But again, it is what it is. We're in year 2. We continue to see some of those failures of not marketing the league during the Super Bowl as much as they could have during the NFL season. All those type of things, I think, played a role in this. But hey, it is what it is. We're at where we're at, and continue to look at everything going up from here, hopefully. So we'll see you back here. We have the full pick'ems tomorrow. Thursday will be the preview of this upcoming weekend's games that are airing over Easter. I am curious to see where numbers are at this weekend. I could see completely a drop in numbers across the board on TV and attendance, depending on Easter Sunday and this weekend with a lot of people traveling. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.